Hello, everyone, and welcome to my online book club. And we are going to be reading a wonderful book for not only women, but for men as well. And it's called Your Body in Balance by Dr. Neal Barnard. And today it's our first session. We will meet from today, which is October 21st, until October 27th, which is next Saturday. Next Friday. So 7 days. And I hope that you have been able to get your a copy of your book, whether it is in paper form or electronic, because it is one of those books that we should all have in our library. So today I want to start with the introduction. Most of you know me, but if any of you are watching here or in YouTube, I'm Dr. Gustavo Tolosa. I'm a doctor in music, and I have been doing whole food plant-based webinars and cooking demos and programs for 10 years now. And I have my own online 7-day detox and reset program, which is going really, really well. And I'm starting a new one next month in November. And then I will do a Mary's Mini. All of this to help you all survive the holidays. We know that with Halloween, basically the craziness starts, and it is so easy to put on weight in November and December. But it is also easy to stay on track if you know how and if you have the right support. So that's what's coming after this book club, my 7-day detox and reset program, and then doing a 10-day, another type of reset, the Mary McDougall's mini, it's called, because it's a mini diet meant to really move forward your weight loss, if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so we will start today the introduction of Dr. Neal Barnard's book. And of course, in these book clubs, we don't read the book word by word. I highlight sections or parts. And today, so we're going to cover chapter 1, and then for tomorrow, please read in detail chapter 2, and maybe we will get to cover part of chapter 3. Chapter 2 is called Curing Cramps and Premenstrual Syndrome. Then chapter 3 is cancer for women, and then the following chapter is cancer for men. All right. So in the introduction, Dr. Neal Barnard says a lot of the issues, conditions, illnesses that people suffer are indeed due to the type of food that we eat. If you think that every cell and fiber of our body is made up of the food and drinks that go in our bodies, because we don't live, we don't survive with just air. So everything is composed with nutrients and from what we eat and drink. So it makes a lot of sense. So what are some of these issues that people suffer? Well, weight problems, infertility. Infertility now is something very common. Menstrual cramps, diabetes is an epidemic now. Thyroid problems, acne, hot flashes, and many others are related to food. So what he says in in page 9, but it's Roman numeral number 9 in the introduction, he says, the key is this. You know, when an author says the key is this, or this is important, or, you know, things like that, that's what you really want to highlight, because the author is really pointing to a very important place in the book. And so he says, you can control your hormones, you know, and the problems they cause by the food choices you make every day. It is surprisingly easy, and I will show you how to do it. So basically, the point of this book is to show you how to do this. And then he mentions some real life cases, like Robin, who was suffering menstrual cramps, and Elsa, who had given up on raising a family, and Ray, who had assumed that erectile dysfunction was his new normal, Nancy's thyroid gland, Kim, who was chronically depressed, the two sisters, yeah, that I know, because I interviewed them once, Nina and Randa, who were embarrassed about their severe acne. Also, somebody that I know is Catherine. Catherine's endometriosis, Mike's thyroid problems, Bob's diabetes, and Marianne's menstrual misery, and Tony's prostate cancer. All of these people have something in common, he says. Their hormonal systems had been chronically malfunctioning, and yours maybe too. I'll show you how foods cause hormones to go haywire and how the right foods can fix that. So then the next subtitle there is hormones, really? So in the second paragraph, he says, the people I described above all suffered from hormone haywire. They had no idea what was going wrong, much less how to fix it. Their answer was in foods, and yours may be too. Your hormonal system responds to changes in your diet, and the range of health problems that are caused by hormones is truly surprising. And it's equally surprising how fast things can improve with a menu adjustment. And I think many of you who have been a whole food plant-based, or who have tried my 7-day program, you have noticed how fast the body responds. So in the next page, page 11, Roman numeral 11, he says, estrogens and testosterone, the female and male hormones, can be ratcheted up or down based on the foods you eat. In turn, that affects fertility for both men and women, as well as a woman's monthly cycle, menopausal symptoms, and the risk of certain cancers. And then he says, insulin is the hormone that is off kilter in diabetes. And it also struggles to do its job in women with polycystic ovary syndrome. With the right foods, insulin works much better. Again, many of you have experienced this by either attending the McDougall program, or my program, or many, maybe you've gone to True North, maybe you've tried other programs, and you have actually experienced how insulin can work almost perfectly, even a couple of days after you change your way of eating. So then he says, research also shows that foods can influence thyroid function. And even though many doctors will tell you that once your thyroid is damaged, it's really impossible to reverse it, Well, it will also, like he says here, like Dr. Barnard says, um, in many cases this can be stopped or reversed. And actually, I can say that this happened to me. Um, it was my thyroid was slightly off, and after a few months, about 10 years ago when I started, it went back to normal function. So here is the question, the $1 million question now, right here at the bottom of the page 11. Why didn't my doctor tell me? This is a question that many of us ask, and sometimes we ask it in awe, sometimes we ask it and we feel, you know, even frustrated, maybe even angry. Why didn't my doctor tell me these things? Well, this is the explanation that Dr. Barnard gives. It's one of the best explanation that I have read. So let's go over it. This is worth it. If you were going, if you were hoping to learn about these effects of food from your personal physician, you may end up frustrated. Much of the information we will present in this book is a new scientific frontier. True, a lot of this information that we're getting about the power of a plant-based, whole food, plant-based diet is still quite new. It is possible that your doctor may not have heard of it, or he may not realize the extent to which problems can be solved with nutritional adjustments. In other areas, solid research was published long ago, and this is true, but has been ignored by most doctors. Let's face it, he says. A focus on nutrition takes doctors out of their comfort zone. Part of the blame goes to the chronic lack of nutrition education in medical schools. So we could blame partly the lack of nutritional education in medical schools, but still, I think personally, my personal opinion, that a doctor could continue doing some learning throughout his or her career. Another part goes to the fact that most continuing medical education programs are sponsored by who? Drug companies, which have pushed to the sidelines anything that is not sold at the pharmacy counter. Well, what can you expect? You know, it's a drug company is a business that is there to sell prescription drugs. I mean, it would make no sense that they would do continuing education courses teaching doctors about the power of plant foods. They would go bankrupt. So it's understanding. So then he says, this is not a problem just for cramps and fertility, but also for diabetes, heart disease, cancer, migraine, and inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, where a diet change can be powerful, even life-saving. So here's another thing, okay? Some doctors are unduly skeptical about whether their patients are really interested in improving their eating habits, even when their patients tell them loudly and clearly that, yes, they would much rather improve their diets than take drugs for the rest of their lives. Many doctors are much more comfortable with a prescription pad than with a knife and fork. Well, of course, if they don't if they haven't had the education, the nutritional education to know how to do it, how can they feel comfortable advising patients with a knife and fork. So you can see how this problem is not difficult to solve, but it is difficult because it's so ingrained now in the way that things are done. So then he finishes this introduction by saying how to use this book. And he says, yes, you may be tempted to go to the chapter that talks about your own interest or topic or condition. But he says, I highly recommend that you read the book from cover to cover, because as you will see, certain themes emerge again and again. The same nutritional solutions that help cramps or infertility can also have a powerful influence on thyroid problems or even cancer. So if we don't get to cover the whole entire book during this book club, I encourage you to go ahead and read it from cover to cover. Okay, so let's move on to chapter 1 that says foods for fertility. And he talks about a patient that was in one of his research studies he was doing. And the name of the patient was Elsa. And she was in the study because she was struggling with cramps that were extremely painful. And of course, in the study, she was asked not to use birth control pills or hormones. And she said, oh, well, that's not a problem. I don't have to take that because I've been told that I'm infertile, and that I will not be able to have children. And her husband had already accepted that fact. When a while later, into the study, into the research, she comes one day and she didn't look sad at all to tell Dr. Barnard that she was going to have to leave the research study. And when asked, she said, wow, I'm pregnant. Even though she had been told and confirmed by the medical profession that she would never be able to get pregnant. And not only did she have one child, but later on, years later, Dr. Barnard was giving a lecture in the Midwest, and he was surprised to see Elsa in the audience. And she went and she introduced Dr. Barnard to her 3 children. The similar case is with our next person here in the book. I'm on page 4 now, and that's Catherine. And she wouldn't mind if I mentioned that this is Catherine Lawrence, because I've done a webinar with her to talk about her story. And her story is very powerful, and it is explained here on page 4 and 5. But basically, she had a serious case of endometriosis, and she had been told as well that she was not going to be able to have children. And she decided that before she did a very, well, I don't know if it's dangerous, but, quite a, a surgery that was going to change her life. And she decided that before doing that, she was going to at least try to go to a nutritionist. And it so happened that this nutritionist was plant-based. And she changed the way of eating. And then 6 weeks later, she went to see her doctor to get a laparoscopy and see if she was ready for the surgery. And the doctor explained, to his surprise, that her endometriosis was practically gone. So much so, in fact, that she no longer needed a hysterectomy at all. So uh, Catherine's husband, uh, he wasn't surprised. He actually told the doctor about how Catherine had revamped her diet and how it had helped her enormously and how she was feeling better and better. And of course, he was cut off by the doctor who was having none of this stuff. Okay. He said, foods don't cure endometriosis, he said. Of course, and there's no way that a diet change could make it go away. There was only one possible explanation, he said, and that explanation was that it was a miracle. So he was more prompt to call this a miracle than to even, you know, to even accept the possibility that changing what you eat could have an effect. So Catherine also not only had one child, now she has 3 children as well. So very, very powerful stories. I hope that they are stories that bring hope to you if you're watching this and you are wanting to have kids and can't. You have to always consult with your doctor because it's case by case, and hopefully you will be able to find a whole food plant-based doctor who knows how to work with you. This book is very detailed. So you can just follow here what Dr. Barnard says, and you can follow all of these recipes that are here and probably get some impressive results. So one place that I really liked was on page 7, okay? Page 7. So if you excuse me, it was kind of cool earlier, but now it's warm. So on page 7 at the bottom, it says millions of hormone factors. Okay. And so I like how Dr. Barnard explains things. He's a very good teacher. And so towards the end, the last sentence at the bottom of page 7 says, fat cells are busy hormone factories. Remember that. This is very important. Sometimes we are like, oh no, fat cells, I don't, they're horrible, they make me fat, all of that. But fat cells have a purpose, and they are little factories of hormones. Every minute of every day, they crank out hormones, starting with hormones produced by your ovaries and adrenal glands. Fat cells turn these raw materials into the male hormones and female hormones that control your basic biology. I'm at the top of page 8. The more body fat you have, guess what happens? Well, he just told us that fat cells produce hormones. So the more body fat you have, the more hormones they produce, obviously. Now, they can get your hormone balance out of kilter and interfere with your fertility. Okay, so if there's too much fat, there are going to be too many hormones that will throw your body out of balance. And the title of the book is Your Body in Balance, not Your Body in Imbalance. So having extra body fat will not help your fertility one bit, okay? That's page 8. I have known throughout my life several cases of women that when they lost, that they were overweight or obese, and when they lost weight, they were able to have children. So he says on page 8, having extra body fat will not help your fertility one bit. In Harvard's Nurses' Health Study number 2, researchers examined fertility in a large group of women based on their body weight. Fertility was greatest for those who were a bit on the thin side of normal weight range. At even slightly higher weights, even for women within what we would consider a healthy body weight, infertility was more common. For seriously overweight women, fertility problems were nearly 3 times more common. On page 10, okay, at the top, page 10, it says, being overly lean can lower estrogen levels too much and can shut down ovary function. So for optimal fertility, it helps for heavier women to lose weight and for overly thin women to gain weight. So you can see how there is a balance there. Excuse me. That is something that you will learn throughout this book, how to get to that balance. Now, one of my favorite topics on page 10, okay, fiber. Fiber is one of the main focus of my 7-day program that we do, where we reset our bodies, we clean our bodies, we get rid of extra hormones, we get rid of extra fat, we get rid of extra cholesterol. Insulin starts working better. And all of that is due to what? Well, to this word that we have here. Yeah, yes, ladies and gentlemen, fiber. If excess hormones cause problems, you can get rid of them, right? Well, he says, yeah, the answer is yes, you can get rid of excessive hormones. In fact, your liver is trying to do that for you right now, all day long, every minute of the day. Your liver filters your blood, removing things that don't belong there, like toxins and medications and other things, including hormones. Your liver sends them into a small tube called the bile duct, which leads to the intestinal tract. There, if there is fiber, okay, fiber soaks them up and carries them out with the wastes. You're literally flushing away unwanted hormones. As we all know, the problem that we have with the Western diet is that the amount of fiber, undisturbed fiber, is minimal. It's truly minimal. So what happens then? Well, he says there is plenty of fiber in beans, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. And this healthy fiber escorts unwanted hormones out of your body. But animal products do not have fiber. If chicken, fish, dairy products, and eggs are a prominent part of your diet, you may not have enough fiber to soak up and remove unwanted hormones. And here comes the problem now. That means hormones end up being reabsorbed back into your bloodstream. This process is called enterohepatic circulation. Entero refers to the digestive tract, and hepatic refers to the liver. So hormones are ejected from the liver into the intestine, but then pass into the bloodstream and eventually back to the liver, where the whole process repeats several times a day. Instead of flushing away unwanted hormones, your body keeps recycling them, leaving you with more hormones than you want. So what is the answer to this? Well, throw away those animal products and bring in the vegetables, fruits, beans, and whole grains. Their fiber will capture the hormones in the digestive tract, and we carry them away once and for all. We are at the top of page 11. Instead of recycling unwanted hormones in your bloodstream, you will send them down where? The toilet. You will see, you will still have enough hormones for normal functioning, and getting rid of the excess is a big help. Fiber does the same thing for cholesterol, as you may have heard. So in this little rectangle here, it says, the average American gets about 16 grams of fiber per day, according to the US government statistics. Well, let me tell you, those statistics are a little exaggerated. Many doctors and dietitians believe that it's much less than that. But let's say that the average American gets 16 grams of fiber per day. For good health, we should double or triple that. Our target is at least 40 grams of fiber per day. That is exactly what we do in the 7-day program, or in any program that you join that is whole food, and the word here is whole food, plant-based. You would get at least 40 grams per day. I am almost certain that I, along with the participants in my 7-day program, get more than 40 grams of fiber per day. Okay, so that's your goal. That is a goal that will help you. It needs to be fiber that has not been broken up, okay? That it's not been put in a blender, for example. Not that you can't do that. You can have your smoothie if you want to. But make sure that you eat intact fiber in the form of whole foods, whole vegetables, and whole fruit. Yes, they can be cooked, they can be raw, but they need to be whole. Okay, what is another thing that disturbs the process of fertility? Well, or that we should say that can help, just like fiber can help get rid of hormones. Going dairy-free on page 12 and 13. Another threat to fertility may come from dairy products. This is not entirely surprising because milk and cheese have plenty of unnecessary calories and lots of fat. Typical cheeses are 70% fat. Okay, so I don't know if you knew this number. It is quite concerning that some cheeses are up to 80 or more % of the calories come from pure fat. So as these products bring on an extra weight, those growing fat cells contribute to hormone haywire. And of course, dairy products are not plants. So besides giving you all those fat calories, they also don't have fiber. But dairy products have two more attributes that could aggravate hormone problems. First, In order to maximize their milk production, dairy cows are artificially inseminated every year. During their 9-month pregnancy, cows produce estrogens that get into milk. When you're drinking milk, you have to understand that the cow was pregnant. So you're drinking those extra hormones. When milk is turned into cheese, the estrogen traces are more concentrated, way more concentrated. Second, the milk sugar, lactose, may be harmful to the ovaries. And he talks about Dr. Daniel Kramer at Boston's Brigham and Women's Hospital. The more milk women drink, the faster their decline in fertility as the years go by. Normally, fertility declines bit by bit as women get older. In Thailand, where milk is not traditional part of the diet, fertility declined by only about 25% as women pass from their late 20s to their late 30s. But what happens in countries like Finland, where dairy products are a major part of the diet? Well, instead of 20% decline, it's 80% decline. And that happens in New Zealand, Denmark, the United States, and the United Kingdom. You will find lactose-free cow's milk in stores, but that does not solve the problem. The fact is, it just has been treated so as to break the lactose into glucose and galactose in advance. So galactose is waiting for you right in the carton. Skip it. Dr. Barnard says, just go with plant milks. There are very good ones nowadays. I can tell you for sure that it only takes me at the most 3 minutes to make my own almond milk. You can buy or make soy milk, rice milk, oat milk, almond milk, hemp milk, and many other varieties. So one interesting thing to know is that most other plants are galactose-free, although traces do show up in dates, papayas, bell peppers, tomatoes, and watermelon. Interesting. So maybe, just maybe, if you're trying to get pregnant, and of course you're ditching all of the dairy product and animal product, and you're going to follow this way of eating, maybe for a while, for a few months, you might want to skip some of those foods that we just mentioned. So on page 14, it says, it is good to be lactose intolerant. Actually, our bodies are made to be lactose intolerant after we're done, drinking our mother's milk. Many people are lactose intolerant, meaning that milk sugar gives them digestive troubles. This is not a disease, even though nowadays it may sound like it's abnormal. Actually, it is normal to be lactose intolerant. It's not a disease. It is totally normal for human beings to lose the ability to digest lactose in the years after weaning. After all, you're no longer nursing. You no longer need the lactase enzymes that break down lactose. Many people cite a need for calcium as a reason for consuming dairy products. Luckily, there are far more helpful sources of calcium. Green leafy vegetables and beans in particular are calcium rich, as are many other foods from plants. By skipping dairy products, you will skip their fat, their calories, cholesterol, estrogens, and galactose. Then he talks about, actually, he doesn't talk, he mentions polycystic ovary syndrome, and he says that this is such a common problem that he will give its own chapter to this, which is chapter 5. So we will leave that for when we get there. And then he talks about foods and sperm production. And this is important, obviously, for men. Um, and he's on page 15. Dr. Barnard says, making sperm cells is not an easy job. The body has to make millions of microscopic submarines, each one carrying the genetic plans for a human being, with the not so simple assignment of trying to find and fertilize an egg. Lots of things can go wrong in the process. Sometimes there are not enough sperm cells, or sperm cells are not formed correctly or do not move very well. Here again, dairy products come under suspicion. And he talks about researchers at the University of Rochester who tracked the diets of 189 male college students. It turned out that men who consumed the most cheese and other fatty dairy products were more likely to have poorer sperm morphology and motility compared with other men. That is, the shape and movement of their sperm were more likely to be abnormal. Their sperm counts tending to be lower too. The researchers hypothesized that the estrogen in dairy products may have affected the men's reproductive biology. On page 16, it says, one might think that the traces of hormones or chemicals in dairy products would be too small to affect our health. But remember, dairy cows are pregnant 9 months out of every 12. And the amount of estrogen rises as the cow's pregnancy progresses. As I mentioned earlier, the process of turning milk into cheese concentrates the hormones. Then he talks about using exercise to boost fertility. So if this is something that you're struggling with, it seems for the studies that have been done so far that vigorous exercise was associated with better fertility. So in this case, it's not exercise like going out for a walk or doing yard work. It needs to be vigorous exercise. All right. On page 17, you have a chart that is talking about exercise. Reduction in risk of infertility per hour of exercise per week. So aerobics, for example, 5%. So is biking and lap swimming. But when you get to racket sports, it's 12%, jogging, 22%, running, 34%. And then he talks a little bit, as we finish this chapter, about morning wellness. He changes this from morning sickness to morning wellness. And basically, he says that morning sickness may be a way that your body reacts to, so that you won't be eating things that will harm your baby. It turns out, let's see here, on page 18, at the bottom of page 18, he says, naturally, a woman's immune system protects her from pathogens. But during pregnancy, her immune system defenses are naturally weakened to prevent her from rejecting the development embryo, as the body will think of the embryo as a mm, something foreign to the body. So nature adds another layer of defense. It makes a woman much more sensitive to the smell and taste of potentially tainted foods, so that if she has eaten something unhealthy, she will throw it up. Indeed, morning sickness is especially acute in the first trimester, when the baby's organs are first developing and are most vulnerable to harm. The most common food aversion among pregnant women is meat. Some societies even have traditions or taboos against meat eating by pregnant women. This makes sense, he says. Meat often harbors disease-causing germs, Salmonella, Escherichia coli, Toxoplasma, Listeria, and many others. Researchers also observe that in cultures where diets are based on corn and green vegetables rather than meat, morning sickness is less likely to occur. None of this is an accident, Dr. Barnard says. It is all driven by hormones. So then on page 20, he says, cutting out dairy products and meat ought to more or less eliminate morning sickness, which is exactly what happened for Catherine. He talks about a little bit more about Catherine's case. So the nutrition plan is in chapter 12 of this book. And we will stop here. That's the end of chapter 1. And I will see you all tomorrow for a discussion of chapter 2. Now, if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please feel free to type or unmute. If you'd like to send me an email, feel free to do that. My email is info@plantemas.com. And you can also send me an email from my website right here, where it says contact. You can click on contact, and it should, let's see, hold on. It should take you to the page where you can send me an email. Also, right here, if you go to webinars and you click on live workshops, you can read a little bit more about the 7-day mini retreat and what we do and when the next one is and how to register, which is here at the bottom. And I'm just wondering why I'm not getting this page, but there it is. Okay, so if you want to contact me, you can do that through that, or you can, like I said, you can send me an email. My email is info@plantemus, plant, PLANTEMUS. Any questions, any comments before we close? No? Okay. Well, thank you for being here, and I appreciate it. Let other people know. So many women and so many men are dealing with this issue of hormonal imbalance and ability to get pregnant, and this is a problem that affects both women and men. I hope that you will let others know, and I will see you tomorrow at the same time. And thank you for being here.